Oh, Engineer Jeff.
Now, I ain't saying she a gold digger.
Engineer Jeff, keeping it live. How about that, T-Bird? Engineer Jeff's got your back.
I love this.
Yeah.
So good.
Get down, Kanye. I wonder if Kanye did a prenup, considering he probably married up in cash. Wouldn't you guess? The Kardashian empire, probably more than the business empire. I don't know. Maybe not.
I don't know.
He's got his hands on all kinds of stuff. That would have been an interesting little because they got to talk about that before they get married. They can't just be like, "Yo, let's do this."
Well, it's probably not them talking about it. It's their people.
Right, their peeps.
Their people calling each other's people. Yeah.
Your people call my people.
Yeah.
We'll get married.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
We'll
Gang, T-Bird in the house. T-Bird Law Group. Oh man. If you missed the first one, you got to go back and check that out on the archives at thegreenhousegroupinc.com/truth radio, because we did some damage on the old sugar daddy, sugar baby game, the Aging America game. Oof, that was a good kickoff point. And right off and in to the womanizers. How do you even set up a womanizer gang? Let me do my best shot. What happens when a man promises you the world? What happens when there's things said like, hey, you can live in this nice apartment of mine, right? Or what happens when it's like, hey, here's the credit card, go buy whatever you want. Now, when everything is rolling still, or you might say alive, those things can be managed. What happens when one person departs, right? Are those contracts binding? T-Bird, take us through the womanizer game.
All right. Well, the womanizer is a little bit different than the sugar daddy, sugar baby, right? And kind of a typical sugar daddy, sugar baby, we have two people that are on even playing field. They each know what each other's getting. But the womanizer is the one who's kind of saying, I'll give you this in exchange for something else. I promise you. And it's sort of making false promises just to get what he wants.
Sounds familiar to the last segment as well, right?
Right. Except, I like to think of it as there's a little bit more inequity here.
Okay.
Maybe you have someone who doesn't quite know what they're getting themselves into. So I recently...
Meaning with the person who's being womanized. The recipient of the womanizer.
Yes, the younger person. In other words, we have false promises.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay. So
to get what they want.
Right. So one person is promising, but the other person isn't receiving. And that's kind of the distinction for me between, the sugar daddy or sugar mama and sugar baby.
Because the sugar suggests that you got the sugar.
Right, you got the sugar.
Yeah.
Right. So with the womanizers, we have these men often that are promising either an inheritance or an apartment, as an example.
Okay.
So I had a case, elderly man, no wife, no children, multimillionaire, invested in a lot of property, and he met a woman that became my client, and she was much younger and much more beautiful.
While he was still alive or
While
deceased?
he was still alive, but he was 30 plus, 40 years older. Okay. And so he said, if you help me take care of my properties, get them ready to relet, then I will provide for you upon my death. I'll give you, he eventually promised her over $5 million.
Whoa.
And she's young and she had young kids, and she's like, this is great. I have no problem working for you for free. So she put in 8 years of her service.
Anything in writing?
Well, luckily, she did get something in writing that said, I promised to give you $5 million and my property. And he identified a particular property, which was really key to our case. But he passed away. And she had nothing. There was no will that we found that was operative, in other words, valid. There was no trust. We know there was trust that existed at some point.
But nothing that mentioned her.
He had given her a piece of a document that looked like a part of a trust that had her name on it. But she didn't know what she was looking at. She didn't know the right questions to ask. She just believed him. And he would drive her around and show her homes that she would one day own or that he would promise to buy for her in the future. And then oddly enough, it was another man and his daughter, a caregiver, and his younger daughter that kind of swooped in and blocked my client out, just to add a little twist there. So she ended up with nothing. And
a man and a woman and their daughter?
No, a father and his daughter.
And his father let the daughter go be creepy?
Yeah. Well,
Oh, man.
so ultimately, the elderly man married the daughter here, who is a realtor. I hope they're not listening. And the father became the caregiver for the elderly man in the last few years of his life, literally last 2 years.
Wow.
And because she was a realtor and she was more savvy, they transferred his properties into joint tenancy out of the trust that we never found, but if you can imagine that one exists.
Wow.
And so she's now in possession of the estate, and we intend to go find it.
Wow. Wow.
So my poor client was left with no payment for 8 years of service. And this is a situation where they had a contract. She performed labor and received
She upheld
nothing.
her end of it.
Right. She upheld, just like a business contract.
Right.
Right. But she got nothing. So you can't just go around promising people things and then not deliver and think that, well, because you're dead, it doesn't matter.
Well, it sounds like you can.
Well, yes, but we went after them, didn't we?
Okay.
And we prevailed.
Oh, okay. All right, good. There's a good end of the story. Okay, good. Wow.
So that's fun.
Dude, what, you got anything else like that? I'm like, I'm in a trance right now.
Well, I do. So I have the situation is a man is married, right? But his wife is not available to him. She's bedridden, okay? She takes ill, she's bedridden, but she's never going to recover, right? So he finds another lover, another woman who can be available to him.
Did the wife, was she aware of this?
Who knows,
Tough to tell.
right?
Okay.
She probably knew, but
Tough to tell.
They didn't believe in divorce, and so life went on. Plus, who divorces a sick wife?
No
That's
way.
wrong, too.
Yeah.
But basically, he moves out of the house and lives with this other woman. The other woman knows about the sick wife. He asks her to quit her job. She does, so that she can truly be attentive to him and his needs for years. Eventually, the wife dies, and the man marries her while he has cancer. And then he gets better from the cancer temporarily, and he says, I actually don't want you anymore. Now I don't need you. I don't have my wife. I'm not tied down. Now I want to go out. And poor other woman is left with no real remedy here. And so her remedy is a contract. She said, you promised to take care of me. I quit my job. I did not further my career. I spent 15 years taking care of you and your sick wife and being attentive to you. And you need to take care of me for the rest of my life like you promised. Because I need that money. I don't have a career. I don't have the education that I would have otherwise obtained. So that's where we are on that issue.
Wow. Dude, these are throttlers. I can't believe this is what you deal with on a daily basis.
Yeah, but to be fair, these are all very fact-specific cases. They're very difficult.
Yeah.
Just because you're a scorned lover, don't assume that you have a case. But
So let me ask you a technical question on both of these. So one of the things that's kind of almost assumed, even in the sugar daddy segment that we just covered, that there's money involved. So is there like a precondition if the person can even afford it or not? Like, does that play a role in it?
well, it plays a role in whether you want to hire an attorney to go after it. That's for sure.
Okay.
There's no money. What are you going after?
Okay.
And that's kind of that's just the reality of it.
Interesting. So kind of like, okay, yeah. So for the person that's been wronged, it's almost like in order for it to make sense to go after something, there has to kind of be something.
Sure. And there's a common law word that we use, reasonable.
Okay.
You have to have reasonable reliance. Now, reasonable means that you see that this man who's promising to take care of you actually has the assets to take care of you.
Right.
He's actually, in our first case, he's actually showing her properties. She was working at the properties, hands-on,
Right.
pulling up tiles.
Right.
She was, cleaning it out.
Right.
She sees what he has, and he says,
Real
this
property.
will be yours.
Right.
Similarly, someone who is very successful in their career, which is why he can take care of you during this interim period, during the relationship, right? In story 2, he is taking care of her. He is, paying her bills and buying her things. So she knows that it can continue. He has the means to make it continue. If he doesn't have the means, then he's committing fraud. But really, what can you do?
So as I'm kind of hearing this, almost the lesson is that there are enforceable contracts that can be upheld that you're making sort of with your lips that you need to make sure that your booty can cash, right? So you don't have to be married for these contracts to be enforceable, right? So that whole womanizer thing, like, oh, I got these women on the side. Well, be careful, because those women on the side have legal right to whatever it is that you're promising them.
Right.
As long as you can prove it.
Right. You can't just go around making promises to people, especially if they rely on those promises. So a lot of times it's one half of the partner wanting the other half to be available to them. Look, I work really hard, and when I come home, I want you to be there so that you can give me attention and you can cook my meals and you can clean my house. That's what I want from you. Well, if the other partner does that, then they've performed on the agreement. And, they're giving up potentially a career, education, their own life, another man that makes good on his promises.
Adrian, you're in trouble.
I'm screwed.
Yeah, all those promises you've been making. Gang, hey, no lie, I don't know about you, but this is some good stuff. Sitting in the captain's chair for as long as I have doing this, these things are real, they're out there, and they might be applicable to you or somebody that you might know who is close to you. You might even be in one of those scenarios and thinking to yourself, man, maybe it's a good idea to talk to somebody about some of this stuff so I know what my legal rights are. That might be a good opportunity to reach out to our home slice across the table here in the hot seat, T-Bird, over at tbirdlawgroup.com, right? And what's the number for them to call again?
858-215-2873.